Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Nourished and Thriving Show. I'm Katie Lovitt, registered dietitian, and I'm so happy to be here tonight. Thank y'all for joining in. I know it's a little bit of a late night for some of you guys. I had to take my oldest daughter to welcome to middle school meeting, and that was quite the experience. So it was something I really needed to be there for. But I'm grateful that y'all are here, grateful to have this opportunity. Wanted to spend a little bit of time just introducing myself tonight. Some of y'all may be my people, and if so, welcome over to this platform. The Nourished and Thriving Show has actually been around for a little while. It's not completely new. It used to be a podcast and a YouTube show. It's never been a live stream like this, and it's never been done in this way in coordination with other people. And so it's just even bigger and better. Kind of like I said in my Instagram announcement, that Nourished and Thriving Show is back and better than ever. And so, really the purpose of this show is really cool. It's a different perspective, bringing together a group of people, really talking on a similar topic or the same topic, but bringing different perspectives and takes to it. And I don't really know a lot of other places where you can get that. And so, like I said, just grateful to be a part of this opportunity. And if you've ever felt like you have done everything right, if you're one of those people, I hear it a lot. I'm doing everything right. I'm cutting things out. I'm tracking my macros. I'm being disciplined and I feel worse, or I'm gaining weight, or I'm just not feeling like I'm going anywhere. This episode's for you. So like I said, my name's Katie Lovitt. I wanted to say my name again because I personally am horrible with names, even worse with recognizing people out of context. So if I see you in a random place and I know you from somewhere else, I may act like I don't know you because I'm the worst at that. But wanted to say my name again. I'm a registered dietitian. I've been a registered dietitian for about 15 years now, coming up on 16 years actually, which is pretty wild. And I'll get into a little bit to my story in a minute, and what led me to here, what I do, how I help people. But the big belief that we're kind of unpacking this week on the Eclipse Pain and Recovery Network is this belief that if I follow this plan that has been laid out for me, whether someone else laid it out for me, a health professional, a trainer, it's something I've read in a book, I follow an influencer on Instagram and they got these great results and I'm following their plan, I should get better. I should get the results that they say I should get. And we're kind of unpacking that because as health professionals, that's not always what we necessarily see happening. And so we're kind of breaking it down specifically with nutrition today, which is kind of my meat and potatoes. And so we're talking through, more generic nutrition plans, what that is, why people who follow those plans tend to get more kind of burned out and frustrated, first. And then what to do instead, because I always, every episode, and this was true for my podcast when I had it, it's true for my patients, it's true for my team's patients. Whenever we leave tonight, I want you walking away with 1 to 3 very clear, specific action steps to move forward with, because if you don't have something to implement and apply into your life, then you just sat and retained a lot of information, but is it really going to help you become better or improve your current status? So that is a little bit about us. If you are watching live, I have the chat feed. I have a couple people here helping moderate for me. Drop your questions, drop your comments. We should have some time towards the end to cover those. And if there's something that I feel like, is a bigger topic that we need to go more in depth with, then we can, go more in depth in a future session as well. That's fine. So let me tell you a little bit about me. Y'all know I have at least one child. I actually have 3 kids, 4, 7, and 10. I'm married. We live in Texas, as does everyone else doing this network. And I am an owner and founder of an insurance-based group practice here in Texas. And I have a background as a dietitian and then also advanced credentialing in integrative and functional nutrition. So kind of into the integrative and functional space. I got into that back in 2017 after, in college, kind of being disenchanted with what I was being taught in school. It was pretty generic, pretty general, and I felt overly simplified. And I just felt like my ability to impact people was pretty limited. So upon graduation, I actually went into corporate and worked for a major food company doing regulatory work, nutrition labeling, that kind of things, influencing product development. Chose to leave and stay home when our first daughter was born. Family is very important to me, if you hadn't picked up on that. And honestly thought I would never go back to nutrition because, like I said, I just felt like what we were taught in school wasn't helping people. And then I found integrative and functional, and that was like a light shining down from heaven at that point. I was like, this is what I wanted to learn in college. So pursued that advanced credential over a couple of years and ran a primarily gut health, practice for a couple of years. And then we've gotten more generalized as we've become a group, started accepting insurance and all of that, but still bring that integrative and functional perspective into everything that we do. So that is a little bit about me. In my practice, I have all the time people coming and saying that they feel like they've tried a lot of things with limited success, no success, or maybe they had success with it 20 years ago, stopped doing it, kind of like Jose was saying, someone was doing his back stretches or exercises and it felt great, and then he stopped doing it and got injured, and then was like, oh yeah, I was doing that and it was helping a lot. If you didn't hear Jose's show last night, make sure you go check it out. He had some great tips for exercise and activity. But something worked, they try it again, but this time it doesn't work. They're not able to get those same results that they got before. And so just feeling really frustrated with conflicting information that they're hearing from different, authoritative sources, all of that. Effort matters. I will say that, like, you have to show up, you have to put in the work. Like Jose and Dr. Leek were both saying too, you are ultimately the captain of your health ship. And you have to be present. But individualized care matters also. You don't need a perfect plan, but you need a plan that works for you, and just like I think it was Jose was saying, let me think. I think it was Jose was saying, nobody's perfect. And we are not able to follow perfect plans because we are not perfect people. But you don't need a perfect plan. You just need something that works for you. Those perfect plans, they look really good on paper, but ultimately they fall apart in the real world. And we'll get into that a little bit more here in a minute. That's why, a lot of the time people will come and think of a dietitian. It's always interesting whenever somebody first comes to me and they ask what I do, or I ask them what they think dietitians do or what they expect to get out of our sessions. And a lot of the time people say, oh, I just need a meal plan. Just tell me what to eat and I'll do it. I just need a meal plan. And 95% of the time that does not work because things come up, it sounds great on paper. It sounds totally doable. This should work. The math works, but you're not a math equation. You're a human being, like Dr. Leek was saying, you have a body and a heart and a mind, and you're influenced by many factors. So let's get into that a little bit more. So a really great example actually of a generic health plan or meal plan right now is the dietary guidelines for Americans. I'm in a little weird nutrition bubble over here, so not everyone knows what those are, but they just got released I think 2 weeks ago now. I did a live stream with Haley, a dietitian on my team, earlier today over on Instagram and Facebook, where we unpacked it in more detail than we're going to get into tonight. But they are guidelines for Americans, dietary guidelines, released about every 5 years. They are revised and updated because the science is always changing. And if you think about nutrition and what we were doing 100 years ago, we were just trying to survive and get enough food, right? Enough calories in, and not starve to death. Maybe more than 100 years ago now, because it's kind of getting into the late 2000s. It's not the 1990s anymore. 150 years ago, just getting enough calories was the biggest problem, and our ability to understand the human body is ever evolving. And I think we still probably only know a tiny sliver of knowledge about what all is involved in our bodies. But so they're revised every 5 years, appropriately so, I think. They are for the general population with the intention of avoiding chronic disease. So they're not geared to, to help you have optimal health and nutrition. They're just helping you maybe avoid chronic illness. The problem is that's a really fine line, because a lot of the time, if we're not optimally functioning, like Jose was saying, we're all eventually going to die from something. We are dying every day. We have cells dying off and new cells coming, and we're aging. And so, ultimately things change. And so if you're not optimally functioning, you are at greater risk of developing a chronic disease down the road. And so I think it's a fine line there. And then a big problem is the majority of Americans are not metabolically healthy. The majority are, overweight or obese, or have a chronic disease. So then it's the question of who are these guidelines really appropriate for, and who are they not appropriate for, and what's the nuance there? And most of the kickback actually that I've seen about the dietary guidelines, besides, politics aside, because it's always highly politicized, I feel like the politics of the guidelines have been more front and center this year. But it's always been highly politicized, no matter which way it's going. But the bigger kickback or frustration I've heard on this set of them is confusion on how to implement the guidelines. And even if you're totally clear on what exactly you need to do, you have a perfect meal plan that perfectly hits, all those benchmarks in there. If that plan doesn't match your biology, your symptoms, your stress, your sleep, your goals, your health history, then being compliant to that plan isn't going to fix that. Does that make sense to you guys? Hopefully it does. So the generic guidelines don't necessarily fail because the science is wrong or because they're wrong. They fail because we assume that we're all the same, and that it's going to be a one-size-fits-all situation there. So, so wanted to get in, checking the time here. I have 3 kind of main points about why I think compliance fails. I kind of teed it up a little bit with the dietary guidelines for Americans, but really 3 biggest reasons that I see whenever I've thought about it, and it all boils down to, the first one is we need to define what compliance means. And Jose got into this a little bit last night whenever he was talking about exercise. What does it mean to be compliant? Are you really doing all the things? I think I do it myself, right? You think, oh yeah, no. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat a lot of added sugar at all. And then you think about your actual day, or you actually write down what you did eat, and you're like, it has kind of snuck in a few places that I didn't realize, a little bit here, a little bit there. I wasn't, being as restrictive with that as I thought. And so I think it's really important to take a good objective look at what are you really doing? Have you continued to be consistently, disciplined or compliant with this plan? Or do you assume that you are still compliant and still doing the right things because you've been doing it for such a long time? Does that make sense? So some of these things that people say that they're doing whenever they're doing it all, I'm going to kind of read them off here. Tracking food, meal prepping, that's kind of popular, right? Where you get all these really aesthetic people on Instagram with all of their little food containers, and they're chopping and slicing and cooking and all of that, which does help if you have the time to do it on the weekend. Cutting out gluten or dairy or sugar, other foods, eliminating things, eating clean, whatever that means, drinking drinking green juice, hitting the gym, taking a bunch of supplements, all of that stuff. But you really have to decide what are the things that are the most important that provide the biggest payoff. And that's going to be something that we talk about more in a minute, but I'm going to kind of tease that topic out. The second, main point about why I feel like compliance fails with nutrition is they assume, like I was saying with the dietary guidelines, they assume that you kind of fall into this range of metabolic function that's the same, right? They assume that you have normal blood sugar or normal insulin because I don't know if you guys are as much of a nutrition and health podcast junkie as I am. But over all of that and over all of my training, you can hear from a lot of different places, and I see it in my own practice, that our fasting insulin actually increases before it ever shows up as glucose. So even if your blood sugar looks perfect, your A1C looks perfect, your insulin actually may be high, and it's doing a great job of ushering that glucose where it needs to go. But having an elevated fasting insulin is actually a sign of not being metabolically healthy. Your metabolism, your body is not converting the energy, the food, the macronutrients like it should. So generic plans aren't going to take that into consideration. Sleep, stress, digestion, gut health, the microbiome. You guys, I already gave a little shout out to my gut health passions. So gut health is huge. The microbiome, we have more microbial cells in and on our body than we have human. And it's we're kind of more bacteria than we are human, if you think about it like that. So those are, kind of all different things. Those are just a handful. There's a lot more things that need to be considered that just aren't whenever you get a basic plan from someone who's not really taking a studied look, a deep look at you individually. Even if it's coming from a healthcare provider, it's a handout, they're assuming they see the picture, the full picture, and they may really not be seeing that. Like I said, I didn't learn this in college, and I'm a registered dietitian. There's a lot of discord in the health community right now, which we can get into more later, about what's right and what's best, right? And kind of like Jose was saying last night, if you're trying something for a while and it's not working, maybe you try something else, think in a different way about it, and it can be helpful. But we're nuanced and complex beings, like Dr. Leek was touching on in his show on Monday night. It needs a different perspective. We have to consider all of these things. I need to put, Kevin, I might try and link to a blog post in our show notes or something, but I have this image. I should have told him this before, but I didn't. I have this little graphic that my aunt actually drew for me. Shout out to Aunt Tammy. So in my branding, I have a lot of lemons. I like bright and sunny and cheery. I think the world is heavy enough, so I try to bring some brevity to things. But if you cut a slice, like a round slice of a lemon, there's little segments in it, or sections, right? And so she helped draw this graphic for me, and each segment takes into consideration a different aspect of our health and well-being. And so if everything is nice and balanced, you have a beautiful round little lemon. But if not, it's kind of a wonky, old crusty musty, as my daughter would say, lemon that's been sitting in the back of your fridge, right? Where it's all wonky and you don't want to eat it. But some of those things on that lemon, those segments are exercise, sleep, nutrition and hydration, digestion, absorption of nutrients, elimination of toxins. All of that stuff has to be considered. And I've never, in my experience of having patients draw their little lemon rind, I've never had the same person have, or more than one person have the same wonky lemon. They're all a little bit different. There's always nuance to it. So those are all things that need to be considered. The third point, so I'm going to kind of go back because I feel like I've been talking a lot and I don't have any visual indicators for my points. So I'm going to go back. So we're going over 3 main points of why compliance fails. The first was it's not clearly defined what being compliant means, or you think you're being compliant and you're actually not. 2 is these generic plans assume everyone's the same. Nobody's the same. It's always nuanced. 3 is people who are the most compliant tend to dismiss signals to change the direction or slow down the direction. They're going to push through pain. They're going to ignore bloating. They're going to fight fatigue. If they're feeling a little under the weather, they're not going to take a sick day. They're just going to keep on trucking. And I'm guilty, right? I am a person who's just going to keep on going. But what ultimately happens with this is these people think that they're the problem. They think there's something wrong with them. There's something broken with them. They're weak, they're not strong enough, all of that kind of stuff. But what if the issue is actually that the plan that they're following is not the right plan for them? It's not a bad plan. It's not anything wrong with them. It's just not the right plan for them. It's not a willpower issue. It's more of a personalization issue. So those are kind of my 3 biggest points about, why I see compliance failing. So with that, what does personalization actually mean? It's not necessarily fancy. I do some fancy lab testing in my practice where we're testing people's microbiomes and doing, super in-depth nutrient tests and all of that. But that's not my first line of defense. It's not always necessary. A really skilled provider can really listen to your story, look at what you've tried in the past, look at what you're doing right now, and see some gaps most likely. And I've seen enough things where I'm able to typically tell, hey, it's most likely this. We go after the low-hanging fruit first, the most likely option first. We go in with our eyes wide open, observing what's happening. It's an experiment, right? It is not, I think, and this is something where I think we're all guilty of. We want to make a decision. We want it to be the right decision, and that's our decision. But it's okay to make a decision and then change your mind. It's okay to make a decision and then say, you know what? I made that decision. I tried it. It's not working. I'm going to change and do this instead. And that's okay. That's how we grow. And that's ultimately how we get better. So whenever we're working with our patients, we're going in, we're trying, the most likely thing first, the thing with the lowest barriers to being able to implement, which we'll talk about in a minute. But we're observing. It's an experiment like any good scientists, right? Where we are saying, what happens when we do this? And we approach it with a spirit of curiosity. And if we're getting the results we want, fabulous. We keep doing it until we don't get the results we want anymore. And then we change it, or we get to a place of maintenance. If we don't get the results we're hoping for or expecting, then we say, okay, that was interesting. What is our next observation and where do we go next? And then we make that decision from there. It's also about helping you understand what is it that you want. Not what is it that you think you should want, not what is it that your spouse wants for you, not what is it that your doctor says you should do. What does a healthy life look like and mean to you? I see a lot of the time in like the health influencer world, these like super jacked, super ripped, healthy people who are like, oh, I'm going to live and be super strong until I'm 150. That's cool, because that's what they really want. That's not what I really want, that's okay. Like, I respect that. Hopefully they respect that, for me. But I see a lot of the time people, trying to escape this prison, of symptoms or prison of chronic disease and putting themselves in this other prison of, health and lifestyle that is not fulfilling to them, but it's what they think they should be doing or they should want, or it looks great in photos or, whatever that is, that they're chasing. So like I said, like none of those are inherently bad things unless it's not fulfilling to you and you're not, feeling like that's actually what you want. Again, you can try it. Okay, I did, bodybuilding. I'm really into that. I tried it and I realized, you know what? I didn't enjoy that at all. I did that with running. I ran half marathons in college. I kind of did it for the social stuff. I hated it. I never loved it. I liked running shorter distances. I didn't care for running for 2 hours, and it's interesting because my genetics are much more built for like sprints and short bursts of energy expenditure. So interesting how our genetics can play a role there with that, what we naturally like, what we're naturally a little bit better at. But you can try things out and then change your mind. And you don't always know if you're going to like something until you give it a try either. That's what I was telling my daughter, tonight too, as she's having to make some big choices and choose some electives in middle school, try it. And you don't know if you like it or don't like it until you give it a shot. But you don't want to walk away at the end of the day and wonder, what if I had tried it? And what if I had loved it? I don't want that for anybody. So, what does this look like in real life? Like I said at the beginning of our show, I want to give you a few things to do after we're done here that you can go and improve your quality of life, work closer to getting your health goals achieved. So I have 3 questions that I want you to ask yourself to help you start to understand what your personalized plan can look like. So grab a notebook, grab your phone, come back and, take note of the minute on the live, and you can just come back and replay it once you have those things if you need to, and write these down. And, ask yourself and give yourself some time to reflect. Maybe fix your favorite hot tea or a coffee, or, go sit in a quiet place and listen to the birds sing before the big winter storm hits this weekend, and just reflect on them. Spend a little bit of time. So, question number 1. What are the biggest challenges with your health right now? What are the biggest challenges with your health right now? What are the biggest pain points? What are the biggest barriers that you feel are just holding you back? Number 2, this is kind of a fill in the blank. So just write X and Y for now, and you can fill in the blank later. If I could improve X by Y%, my quality of life would be significantly improved. Read it again. If I could improve X by Y%, my quality of life would be significantly improved. And then number 3, what is one thing I can start doing right now to help get the biggest improvement towards that number? Was the one thing I can do right now to get the biggest improvement towards that number? So maybe whenever you're writing that down, maybe like 10 things jump into your mind all at the same time. Cool. Write them all down and do some experiments on yourself. Think kind of like I just walked through with my mindset with my patients, right? Where you're like, okay, I think this is most likely going to be the thing I can do consistently. It's achievable. I think it's going to give me some, good bang for my buck. Try it for a few weeks. Do an experiment. Document how you're doing. If it's not helping, okay, cool. Come back to your list and try the next thing, okay? But just keep moving forward. I wanted to give you guys a few ideas. Again, this is not medical advice. This is a YouTube live. Go talk to your healthcare provider. But these are some common things that I see in my practice. So maybe it's drinking water. I have my cute little cup. Drinking water. I hear from a lot of people where, they're drinking no water a day, 20 ounces a day, anything like that. Check and see how much water you're drinking. And maybe it's something about being more intentional with hydrating. Maybe it is getting sunlight first thing in the morning so that it can help set your circadian rhythm and support better sleep at night. Maybe if it's doing some moving like Jose helped break down last night. Maybe it is doing some meal prep on the weekend, chopping veggies, turning it into a family affair, bringing in somebody to help you once a week if you're, running out of time or, you're physically unable to do all that prep work on your own. Maybe it's hiring a dietitian and getting a personalized plan, or going and talking to your doctor and say, hey, you know what? We've been doing this a long time. What else can we do? Jose said that again, like there's going to be a lot of overlap in our shows, just with a different perspective and angle on that. But it's good advice. Sometimes the best plan isn't the perfect plan. Like we said, it's often almost never a complete overhaul, because that's just not typically very sustainable. It's normally 1 to 2 simple things that you can repeat consistently and gradually add to them and incorporate more things over time. So let's see. I have a few things where we can talk through some real life examples of people, who have had this frustration of like feeling like they're compliant, but they're still suffering from symptoms, and maybe what they can do. But are there any like burning questions in our chat that we need to answer first?
There are.
Yeah.
I saw one just a little earlier.
Sure.
So really interesting scenario. 2 different diagnoses that require 2 different types of diets.
Yeah, that's tough. And I think you have to go back and look at the physiology and understand physiology and biology. Because a lot of the time, they're not as different diets as you might think. One condition may actually be being driven by the other condition. And so it's like, if I can improve that condition, this other one will also improve. And so that, can be the case there. And then there can be kind of a gray area and some nuance with it too, where you can blend those 2 things. But that is, maybe more complex, and would probably benefit from speaking with someone who can help you navigate that and blend those together. But try to see if there's any overlap, see if there's any connection points between the 2 conditions where one might be actually driving the other one to progress or improve. Anything else? I can get into these examples too.
Got another one on deck.
Yeah.
What food should people avoid eating that cause inflammation?
Yeah. So a lot of people know the answers to this. But it's personalized, right? It's personalized. I can give some very generic examples that are generally not health supporting for any person. But then there's always the nuance and personalized factor to it as well. So we all know, and this was stated in the dietary guidelines a couple weeks ago, sugar does not promote health. Added sugar does not make you healthier by eating it. Sugar drives inflammation. Excess refined carbohydrates, I would argue, also don't promote health. They're not going to make you healthier. Does that make sense? They can also drive inflammation because they are negatively affecting your microbiome, the organisms living in your gut, to be more pro-inflammatory. And it's really interesting, actually, in the cell wall of some of these organisms that feed off of the more refined carbs, is something called LPS, or lipopolysaccharide. And it actually can negatively influence your gut barrier, so cause gut barrier breakdown, which leads to something we call leaky gut, where things are getting into your bloodstream that should be staying in your gut, which then creates some systemic inflammation. And this LPS specifically, that's part of this microbial cell wall, negatively impacts the mitochondria, which you guys may remember from 9th grade biology, is, what produces energy for our cells. And that really causes a lot of inflammation. So anything that is going to negatively impact your microbiome is going to also negatively impact you, and most oftenly in the form of inflammation. Inflammation is really kind of a the foundation. I'm not going to say it's a root cause because there's something causing the inflammation, but it's really a foundational piece of a lot of chronic disease. So refined carbs, added sugar. And then I'm also going to say, you know, anything that you have a sensitivity to, that you're not able to digest, that is causing, you know, your immune system to respond. But again, a lot of that goes back to gut barrier integrity and gut barrier function. If you think about your intestines, the inside of your gut is actually the external world. It's like a hose, like a garden hose from top to bottom, and it's open on both ends. So it's actually the outside world. And then that gut barrier has special cells that let things into your body. And so whenever that gets worn down, things get in that should not be getting in. Yep. Does that answer that?
I've got something that's a little random.
Okay.
It's on topic, but it might be a little random.
Hit me.
All right. So I don't know if anyone else's feed has been doing this on their YouTube channel, but I've been getting quite a lot of parasite videos. Oregano oil, black seed oil for detoxes and flushes. Is anyone else out there getting that same thing? What are your thoughts on that one?
Funny you say that. I'm in a mom text group with some of my 4-year-old's friends, and she was asking, she didn't know what I did, but she was asking what, if anyone knew of a good parasite protocol for her kids. So I do feel like it's kind of trending right now, Kevin. That's a good question. I can speak to that, I guess. There's different camps of parasites, I guess, like different camps of beliefs around parasites. There's some people on the end of like every parasite should be eliminated and it's bad. There's some that say, you know, having some is actually normal, you know, and everything in between. I'm not necessarily somebody who is a proponent of doing routine parasite cleanses in the absence of symptoms. I think first it's important to try and understand what's driving those symptoms. With gut, you know, that is something that we do a test for fairly often if someone's really struggling with GI symptoms that aren't improving with diet changes. They're getting enough fiber, they're getting enough water, all of that, and it's still sticking around. Because it can be caused by a parasite, but it can also be caused just by an imbalance of bacteria. It can be caused by, you know, an actual pathogenic bacteria. It can be caused by fungal overgrowth. And sometimes some of those are pretty clear and evident what's driving that, but sometimes you really need to understand. But I'm not a big proponent of just doing these, you know, routine parasite cleanses because it can hurt the microbiome. And the microbiome, if you are an organic gardener or you're into grass and lawn care, you'll understand this analogy, I think, where, you know, there's no better defense against weeds than a healthy turf grass. Okay, there's no better defense against parasites, bad bacteria, fungal overgrowth than a really strong, diverse, robust microbiome. And so really supporting that helps crowd out those bad guys. And so taking these herbs that, you know, can kill things off can actually end up hurting you in the long run by creating some gaps in your flora. So does that make sense?
It does. Very interesting. And I happen to be a big fan of St. Augustine, so I definitely agree with you on that one.
The best defense is a healthy turf grass.
Right,
I don't remember
or
who
healthy
first told me
weed
that.
grass right there.
Yeah.
So here's one. Moringa or multi-mushroom complex?
Ooh, what's the goal? Depends on the goal. Depends
For
on the
detoxing.
person. Oh, for detoxing?
Oh, I'm sorry, for inflammation.
For inflammation. Okay. I think it depends, again, like what's driving the inflammation, right? I think mushrooms, it can be a really great part of everyone's diet. I don't think we eat enough, you know, mushrooms. I add like a reishi lion's mane mix to my smoothie myself. I think there's a lot of benefit to it. I don't use the moringa as much in my practice, though. Just don't feel the need, I guess, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think a lot of the time it's more what's driving that inflammation, making sure that we're not bringing things in that continue to promote it. Because you may have heard the term, like, you can't out exercise a bad diet. You can't out supplement a poor diet either. Yeah.
I hope I don't get this wrong. Mycotoxins.
Mycotoxins.
So what are your thoughts on the best ways to detoxify from that?
Yeah. So y'all are like all about the detox. I love it.
It's on everybody's feed, I'm sure.
I guess so. They're pushing stuff. Yeah, mycotoxins, like first of all, where did the exposure come from? Are you still being exposed? So mycotoxins, for people who don't know, are the toxins from mold. Okay, so it's important to understand, where did it come from? Are you still being exposed? You need to get that remediated. And then, understanding, is that really the issue, or is it what you think the issue is? Have you been confirmed tested for having the presence of mycotoxins? And then I always like to understand the bigger picture. What else is going on? Is it just that, or is there other stuff going on? And then y'all are going to hate me for saying this, but creating a personalized plan from there. Don't come at me. I don't want to give y'all like specific things when I don't know the whole picture. But yeah, maybe I should give a couple of these real life examples, then we can circle back, see if there's any additional questions, unless we just have like a ton of questions that we need to answer. I don't know.
I've got a slight one on my on deck for me.
Okay, go.
How long does a salad actually last in the refrigerator?
Oh, you eating some slimy salad, Kevin?
Well, it's not salad. I mean, slimy, but like I love at least 1 day old, 2 days.
Like with dressing on it, or like just the greens?
Well, what do you call it? The oil and vinegar dressings?
Yeah.
Right.
So if it's something that's a more like cruciferous veggie, like a kale, cabbage, like chopped slaw type of salad, you can go a couple of days with that because it's a more hearty leaf. If it's like a leaf lettuce, like a romaine or arugula or a butter, something that's softer, I mean, it's going to be nasty after like a day, next day.
Keep
the dressing on the side.
As long as it's crunchy and still has color and some vibrance, I'm thinking it's good.
Yeah. But it is, because it's a more tender leaf, it'll get mushy pretty quick. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's not going to.
So maybe she wins this one. Let's see here. I'm scanning through the chat here for you to see what else we got out here.
Yeah. No, I don't see anything major. One of the scenarios I was going to talk about was trying to reduce inflammation, actually. So bravo to whoever typed that one in. It's like I fed you my topic ahead of time. I think we kind of touched on that one. Another one that I haven't really heard from you guys here. Keith's puking at your day old salad, Kevin.
The right dressing is amazing.
He's on Team Katie with that too. Something I hear a lot in my practice, especially when I was doing more gut health stuff, is people start cutting out foods that are bothering them, that they feel like they have sensitivities to them. And over time, by the time they come to me, they're eating 3 foods, 4 foods, a handful of foods, and they feel like that's all they can handle. So I wanted to address that because I feel like this is something that, people kind of suffer with in silence a little bit. And it goes back to that gut function. If you're one of those people who has a whole laundry list of foods that they can't eat because it's driving symptoms, you really need to get your gut checked out because something is not working as it should with that, is that, and that's not something people always think about. So yeah. Any other questions here? Soy. Somebody says soy was the worst inflammatory food for you. Yeah, that can be a pretty common one. Mast cell patients are famous for cutting out all the foods because everything makes you feel worse. Yeah, I got that. So yeah. Well, I think that's all I have. Do you have to give up your frozen burritos? Keith, are you making them yourself? Are they highly processed? Tell me more about the frozen burritos. Let's see here. Good. Well, chronic pancreatitis. Ooh, that's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, asking your doctor what's causing it. You know, they may say they don't know, but trying to dig in and understand what that is. You know, I think I know the standard treatment for that is the low fat diet, to try and just minimize and reduce those flares. But if you can dig deeper, if you can read and figure out physiologically what is causing that chronic pancreatitis, and then treating that, so just one step upstream, you might, see better results and have increased tolerance to a wider variety of foods with that. Yeah. Good. Yeah, I would not put Top Ramen, Jamie Bates, as great for inflammation either. I wouldn't put that in the category of helping to reduce inflammation, probably. Another question that that we really help people with a lot is, how do I personalize nutrition? How do I prioritize nutrition when I don't have time? And I feel this one deep in my bones. I am very busy. I do not have a lot of time. But you just have to make it work, and you have to find little ways, and you have to you have to accept upfront, it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be days that you're going to go through the drive-through or grab, a protein bar on your way out the door to your next thing because you just couldn't get a meal in. And that's okay, but you show up again the next day, and you don't give up. You don't just accept, well, I'm just going to go through fast food every day because that's all I have time to do. You continue to tweak the system. You continue to do different experiments with yourself and with your schedule to find a way to, eat as varied and nutritious of a diet as you can. So, good. Anything else? No? Well, thank you guys for being here. Next week, we are going to keep building on this story. So make sure you tune into that, helping you kind of understand what to do next, where to go from there. It'll be at 7 Central, not as late. Again, I had something tonight that I really needed to be here for. And then tomorrow on this same channel at 7 Central, Kevin, is that right? Is Keith with Invisible No More, and he is going to be summarizing all of us and really helping present it in a way that I think really resonates with non-science people who don't do this every day in their career, and so I'm really looking forward to hearing your perspective, Keith, and thank you guys for being here, and that's all I've got.